I'm going to do things a little differently today. I'm not going to talk about Call of Duty. I'm going to talk about how gaming started for me. And I'm Futurizm, and I hope you enjoy this one. I've been a gamer for as long as I can remember. I'd sort of say my first owned console, or owned gaming device, was the original Game Boy, and I had Super Mario 1 back on that, and we're going back away now. And then I played games on the computer. We had an old BBC PC that had 5.5-inch floppies, and they were something special. And back in them days, they felt massive because I was a tiny little kid. But loading them up and playing games like Repton and just basic puzzle games, because this was sort of at the beginning, I think, of a sort of game development and game engineering, because a game is based sort of on decision making and what I class as game theory, I suppose, and you're given a selection of choices, and depending on what choices you make will inflict further choices and how far you can progress. It's pretty simple really when you think about it, and it stems back to even basic board game stuff like chess and drafts, all them kind of competitive to outwit the opponent one-on-one games. Even stuff like Battleships and Connect 4, like Monopoly, they all had a sort of game theory and a strategic tactic to it. And I sort of suppose it stemmed from there for me, having that digital access to a game and sort of a more broader selection of possibilities to do, opposed to the fixed possibilities of like a board game, really changed it for me. And it's sort of there's a lot of things in games that people don't realise. If you go back to the original Microsoft games, like Minesweeper and Solitaire and stuff like that, they were originally invented to teach people how to use Windows, because when the game came, when Windows 95 ticked around, we hadn't had what you class as a graphical user interface, which is what your desktop is and your start menu and stuff. That never existed before, and people didn't really understand the concept of like a mouse, you know what I mean? So in Minesweeper they were teaching you to double click and what right clicks do, and in Solitaire it's teaching you to click and drag and other features of like the operating system it included. And I felt like, games back in the day had ulterior motives, a bit of propaganda still in there. But I'm going to get into more of like the games that I played that really stemmed me in towards the gamer I am today, because I'm all based around first-person shooters. I have played a lot, and to list them all now would be impossible. But where it really changed the game for me was Half-Life, the original Half-Life 1. An absolutely incredible storyline. Like, it took me months to do, opposed to the hours that people complete storylines in nowadays. But the in-depth puzzles and all of the things you had to find out, it made you think. You were like, you were stumped, because a lot of these sort of puzzles hadn't been done before, because you'll find with a lot of games nowadays they sort of use this same decision making process. They'll just dress it up in fancy textures or fancy graphics so you don't notice it, but really it's always do a certain lot of things in a certain order. You can't progress to here till you've got this, there's literally progressive movements to get you through like certain areas and unlocks to move on to later levels. And free roam games did change that a bit, but I felt like in Half-Life you didn't feel like the structured movement of it, and the storyline was much more progressive and flowing, and it was really, really nice. And I feel like games nowadays have lost that. They don't have the awe-inspiring moment, like the moment where you were completely locked in. Like, I remember wanting to come back and play storylines to games, like the next day you're running back from school and being like, I want to know what happens next. And I feel like you don't get that with games nowadays. I feel like we've lost that. But I am playing some different games, some more enjoyable games. There's been a new game recently on Xbox Live. You get games of gold each month, which I don't know if PlayStation do something similar, but we get 2 a month now. It'll soon be 4, because we'll get the 2 games from Xbox 360 will be compatible with Xbox One. But I've noticed recently we're getting a lot more bigger games. It's normally a lot of indie games, and I'll be honest, a lot of them, they're very basic and quite repetitive. But we've had Assassin's Creed Black Flag quite recently, the new Metal Gear Solid Ground Zero, which is sort of just like a one level kind of thing to show you, like a sandbox to show you what the new Metal Gear Solid engine's like, which I've never been a big fan of it, but it is incredible, and you should check that out. It's pretty much peanuts now to buy, and if you've liked Metal Gear Solid in the past, you'll love this. This month we've got a game called How to Survive. Get my words out. And it's sort of like a top-down view, sort of like a strategy kind of game, but you control one character, similar to Baldur's Gate if some of you guys go back to them kind of games. And it's incredible. Like, I really, really enjoy it. It's set on you're on a survivor on an island and zombie outbreak. Standard storylines you find in games nowadays, but you have to control things like your tiredness, your hunger, your thirst, and obviously you have a health bar as well. You also have like a day-night cycle, so different things happen at night compared to day. It's pretty standard in zombie games now, but for a free game and how in-depth it is, it's incredible. The graphics are spot on, how the mechanics of accuracy works. I always find that games that involve shooting that aren't first person, I'm very, very judgmental of. I've said before, first person's where I was born. So when I play a different game type, I am quite critical of how sort of the shooting game engine side works. Because if it's too easy and getting a gun's completely overpowered, like on some games you can just spin around and you're just killing everyone, I find that it sort of removes the challenge from the game and then I aren't enjoying it. And then in some cases it's so difficult to aim that it's pretty much, yeah, you hate it so much and it's so useless. It's, you know, it's frustrating. But I'll try and get some footage up in the background so you can see. But you sort of have if you aim at a character, you'll get like a sort of like a hip fire box, which is like, you know, it could hit him anywhere, and then it will zoom into a headshot the longer you hold it, and then that'll do more damage. And especially for characters that are wearing like body armor, because you get different types of zombies to fight, being able to aim and stuff's way more critical. But you've got all types of guns and different melee weapons you can make. It's got a really good crafting system into it. I feel like it's everything you want from sort of like an MMO, like, you know, you've got your DayZs, your H1Z1s and stuff like these in-depth sort of survival-based games that are enjoyable, but I feel like they're so involving, and you're so like, you've got to be completely at one with the game to make any progress, that it can be very difficult. And I know they're all online based, and what I've been talking about so far is single player, and there is some online to this game. I haven't delved into it yet, so I aren't going to talk about things that I don't know nothing about, but from what I can tell, it's sort of what you can do on single player but with other people. But it is very, very enjoyable. Like I can't knock. I've never played a game for so long on its first day. I think I cracked about 7 hours in when I got it on Sunday, and I didn't get any recordings. Then I was going to do a commentary then, but it was, yeah, absolutely impeccable game. I can't knock it at all. Coming towards the end of this I want to round up a bit more about Call of Duty. I touched on PC games to begin with and where I came from, but I became a COD gamer pretty much the release of Call of Duty 1 on the PC, and I remember playing that storyline, and I know that it helps because the game's based on true events, you know, like it's massive fights from a real war that happened, and obviously like, I'm quite into history, and then you can feel like you can touch on their moments and what people did and what they did to give us what we've got today, like to eradicate the evil from the world, I suppose some people look at it as. But yeah, it can be quite touching, and the storyline really hits back on that on Call of Duty 1. If you can dig out a copy of it, I want them to remaster it in HD. Like, I want a Call of Duty World War II game on the Xbox One. I think it'd be incredible. But I'm hoping with the new Call of Duty Black Ops 3 that they can sort of give me back some of the nostalgic feelings I got from the original COD. I'm not going to get it straight away on the pre-order. I'm going to wait a bit until it comes out and see people's opinions and see if it is there. Because if it's not, if it is still got the hate that COD's had since it went to next gen, I'm going to be honest, no one liked Ghosts. I'll be honest, I didn't like Ghosts as much as I do now. I think it's a better game looking back at it. And if you could fix the spawns and basically not make it grey, like, I think whoever made that game was depressed, man, because it's very miserable. Like, there isn't any happy places, and the DLCs did bring some more lively maps and some more, you know, colourful maps, but the original maps were grey and green, and it sort of bred the camper kind of style because you could hide in plain sight in that game in a ghillie suit, and I think that didn't help it, and I think that everyone died too quickly in it as well, and I think it just got a silly amount of hate. But I'm not here to review Call of Duty Ghosts, and I'm not here to review Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, because that's a short book. It was shit. And I hope that this can break the cycle for next gen games, Black Ops 3, because yeah, I need something, because otherwise I am going to have to hang up my gloves and become a gamer again. And playing this How to Survive has really touched my roots, I think, getting back to what games really are and what games should be, rather than what we expect games to be. But I'm going to call it that, guys. It's been another good commentary. I'm enjoying these a lot more lately, and I'm going to try and get a bit more consistent with it. But I'm going to talk about my problem with consistency in another video. But I hope you've enjoyed it, guys. This is Futurizm, signing off.